Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to RCI TV for the Friday World Championship in the GT3s. My name is Ryan Gill, and I'm glad to be back here today for the Friday Championship with everyone's favorite American commentator around here at RCI. He hates me to say it, but it's Jesse Lee. How are you doing, Jesse?
Oh dear. Oh man, you put me on the spot, Ryan. But yeah, absolutely. It's fantastic to be back, everybody, here on RCI Friday Championship, Ryan. It's just you and me. I do not know who scheduled just the two of us in the booth, but well, they have surely made a mistake. We're just talking about how this is the first championship you and I have casted together in just about a year. It has been. It is great. It feels like coming home. And of course, behind the cameras and behind all of the action today, you will have Nick Setnick, and glad to have him on the board as well. But, well, let's go ahead and get it out of the way, Ryan. The Friday Championship has returned for 2021 here at RCI, and with a couple of new twists.
It has definitely returned, Jesse, and, you know, you're definitely correct. It has come back with a twist. We've got a brand new format that we've never really tried around RCI before for the calendar, and we will get into the calendar and the format, but everything you need to know about tonight is that we're at Spa, it's raining, James Parker is top of practice, and we have a 75-minute race tonight with one mandatory pit stop, which requires a tire change. So it's not too out of the ordinary so far, is it, Jesse? I mean, 75-minute race. We've put another 15 minutes onto the event. We've got a required tire change here tonight, which is a bit different to what we usually do. Usually we just need people to take a liter of fuel as we get to the end of practice, and not too much to differentiate the season from past gone by. But of course, we will get into that later on. But we do have qualifying coming up in just a moment. And Jesse, well, before we do get into qualifying, how do you have a bit of a run through the names, should we say, of everyone competing here today, or at least some of the more notable names that everyone is probably familiar with by now?
Well, I think everybody will be familiar with this fellow. He just started sim racing a few weeks ago, but James Parker has come out swinging. He signed up for this series, and I think if you're going to start mentioning names, his has to be somewhere near the top of the list. Certainly, he will be somewhere near the top of the table. And in fact, here at the end of practice, is standing on the top spot. But George Boothby behind him is the one that's giving him a run for his money early. And just some of the other names here, Cody Pride's in this race. I think we have Jardier somewhere in this field. And of course, Jose Jorge is somewhere around here. I think he's down here in 11. I think Ishmael Lebrec is practicing out there. He's down the order, I think, due to the weather just a bit. Harry Conway, Valentin Berrier. I mean, the list goes on, Ryan.
It definitely does, and we're going to have a lot of excitement here today for sure. I mean, it's raining at Spa. It doesn't get much more exciting than that. But of course, we do have plenty of stuff to get into. Qualifying going to be coming up in just a moment. Valentin Barrier, I think, the last driver out on track that needs to finish his lap. Goes a bit wide there. Doesn't seem to invalidate his lap time, and we should be moving over towards qualifying in just a moment. We'll only have a 10-minute qualifying session here tonight for everyone. Usually we have about 15 minutes, but of course it's been cut down a bit. So it's going to be interesting how they all deal with that. But here we are. We're into qualifying. 10 minutes for everyone to get out there and prove that they deserve to be on pole. And of course, we have 33 drivers here tonight, Jesse. And all of the drivers in the championship here today, that includes those in the top split and all the way down in split 7, had to go through a 2-week qualifying process at Silverstone to earn their place here. So all of these guys, they're here on merit, Jesse. And judging by the way the pre-qualifying was going, this could be the closest championship we've ever had in RCI.
Yeah, it absolutely could. And folks, you did not mishear Ryan Gill. 7 splits. Every split has 33 cars except the 7th split. They only have a very meager 31. But that is a lot of teams and a lot of cars for this championship. This is not a one-off. This is a championship. This, of course, is split number 1. These are the aliens. These are the fastest. These are the esports guys. And these are the guys that are going to do some major damage here in qualifying as they all get out on the track to do their sighting lap. Now, they are going to want to spread out eventually. But again, 10 minutes, like Ryan Gill told you, no time to faff about. You have to get out there. You have to get that lap in.
Yeah, you definitely do. And a circuit like Spa, where, an outlap is going to cost you the best part of 3 minutes around here, it's going to be difficult because you're going to spend a significant portion of your qualifying session just getting around the circuit to start a lap. You're going to have to put down a serious banker lap if you're going to have a good qualifying session. And those drivers that don't get a banker lap in right at the start, they're going to have the pressure on, Jesse, because they're going to be going into the last 3-4 minutes of qualifying knowing that they don't have a lap on the board.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there were cars that were bunched up inside of each other trying to get out of pit road there. And for some of these guys, and oh, by the way, here's Sinchek here, one of the names I didn't get to mention earlier, but look for him to do some damage in this championship sooner rather than later. He's in the 107 Bentley, and he is in the middle of sort of a field of cars. If he backs off, which is what you would normally want to do, gets up into the back of him there a little bit. But normally you want to create some space, but he can't afford to back off too much because there's another pack right behind him. This could be a dangerous spot. But like you said, Ryan, you don't really have much choice. everybody has to get out there. In 33 cars, it's hard to find open space, but certainly they will all try to do that as they are getting ready. The front-running teams right now, here's James Parker, for instance, getting ready to start their first timed lap.
Yep, so James Parker comes across the line. He will start the first flying lap of this qualifying session. So he goes down towards La Source and then begins the run down towards Eau Rouge and Radion, the two most famous corners on this circuit, and two of the most famous corners in the world. We're on board here with the Aston Martin, and how is he going to go? Not going to go flat through here, of course, in the wet. He's going to try and take as much as he can off the racing line. Got to be careful of the puddle that sits here at the top of the Kemmel corner, and then you come out onto the Kemmel straight, the run down towards Les Combes. The Aston Martin looking pretty good at the moment so far for his lap time. Of course, unfortunately, we don't have access to each of the individual split times at the moment, but James Parker looking pretty under control of this Aston Martin at the moment. Little twitch of the wheel there as he comes out of Malbany, and now he goes down towards Bruxelles, the long right-hander. Got to try and get a really nice exit out of here, as then he'll come towards No Name. Be careful, do not go too wide here. You will invalidate your lap, but James Parker keeps it nice and on the curb, not even touching any of the green stuff. Now he comes down towards Pouon. Long double apex left-hander, and James Parker lost it a bit, got on the curb a bit out of shape, kept it in touch, and I think he is going to try and go through and finish the lap. He might as well. No point backing off now. He's got space in front and behind him, so he'll make his way through Lafagnes and then towards Campus, and of course he'll rocket out of Stavelot onto the back section here. But James Parker was looking good in the first sector, was looking good in most of the second sector, but then just got on the curb where it was a bit too wet, Jesse, and got a bit out of shape. But now he comes down towards Blanchimont, of course, completely flat in the dry. Maybe going to have significant lift here. Yeah, you can see just goes down a bit on the revs, lifting through the corner. Now he comes towards the bus stop chicane to complete the lap. It's not going to be the cleanest lap from James Parker. It's not going to be the finest lap he's set here in the wet, but it should be a valid lap for the first of this session. 4.5 minutes left on the clock. It's a 2:25.4.
Pretty good lap there. Starting shots have been fired here in qualifying, and everybody else falling in line as Karsten comes in at half a second slower, and still Vesson comes in about 0.6 down as the times continue to stack up. And I think James Parker has a little bit more in the tank, like you alluded to, Ryan. But a couple of things from that well-sighted lap that you did that I noticed is, well, there's not a dry line out there, but there is a drier line. And, well, the curbs are still incredibly dangerous. Here's Ishmael Lebrec in the 67 making his lap. Certainly, he can be one of the drivers today that could give the top talent fits. We'll have to see where he shakes out in qualifying. But, again, James Parker may be an alien esports driver from Coach Dave Academy, but he is still fighting the same conditions that the other 32 are fighting, and that is incredibly slippery and treacherous conditions, especially on these curbs.
Yeah, and I'm looking at his delta at the moment, Jesse. He was up by almost 0.2 of a second, but he seems to have lost it again around about the same part of the track at Pouon. Again, James Parker just losing a bit of time, but he has managed to find some more time, actually, coming down through this next sequence of corners. So James Parker may be able to retake a provisional pole position at the moment. Of course, Philippe Simard now sitting at the top also in an Aston Martin. We're looking at Jaroslav Honzik here at the moment. He is the highest Mercedes, and of course he's running the new Mercedes Evo 2020, and of course in that number 39, but in a bit of a different livery to what we're used to seeing Jardier run. You know, usually we see the nice white, blue, and red combination, but seems to have gone for a very fluorescent and black-toned Mercedes. And Well, I don't think it's the livery that's contributed towards that little slide that his AMG had, but nonetheless, Jardier catches it just fine.
He's absolutely digging off these corners. James Parker coming off the final turn. We'll see if he improves. I think he might just. He does, but not good enough to take Samard off the provisional pole. He's about half a tenth slower, and that triggers a response from Philippe Samard, who comes back out of pit road, and he will get. He won't get another lap in, so maybe he's just testing something out here. He certainly can't make it around this circuit in a minute 40 from where he is. So, regardless, he will not be able to go back out and set a quicker lap. James Parker will have one more shot at it. So, Alexander Karsten, who just went up to third position in his 22 Bentley. But we saw Jardier wrestling with the car there. One thing that we like to say here in the United States about something like that is he's wrestling with it. And also coming out that corner, he was digging. Any of these euphemisms come off in any other language, Ryan?
I can't say that they're the most common around here in the UK. We do have we do occasionally have a few American commentators that come over to commentate on the British series. We are exposed to some of the terms you guys like to use, but of course you you guys have a few British commentators as well for some of your American series. I mean, IMSA. I can never remember the name of his name, unfortunately, but he does Radio Le Mans. Of course, he likes to go over and do IMSA as well, and he introduces you to a few of the English slang terms that we love to use. But getting back into qualifying, we have only about 20 seconds left to go. Philippe Samard still sits provisional pole from James Parker at the moment. James Parker is up by 1/10 of a second. It would be enough to take him provisional pole. Philippe Samard is coming, and he's not going to be able to start another flying lap, and he peels off into the pit lane to show as much. But James Parker is on a flying lap, and he's coming down towards the bus stop. He's up by 1/10, but he's losing some time, Jesse. He needs to keep the time that he's got here, needs a decent exit from the bus stop chicane now, and James Parker will get a decent exit from the bus stop chicane, comes up towards the line, and
there it
he
is.
will go provisional pole 125.1, and I believe that matches, not exactly matches, but a 125.1 was also the time that he achieved in practice, so at least reaching the heights he did in practice and taking provisional pole. Steel Vason has taken third right at the end as well. We're also watching Jaroslav Honzik, and Clements just goes wide to invalidate his lap. Jardier will sneak into 10th as qualifying comes to an end. But James Parker in the Aston Martin at Spa in the wet has taken pole position. And, well, I don't want to say we expected it, Jesse, but it was one of the high probability outcomes that we discussed, pre-show.
All right, I'll say it. I'll admit it. I expected it. Anybody other than James Parker on pole, I would have been very surprised about. And that's not saying that I didn't expect anybody to compete with him. Just his consistency in practice, and he mirrored his quick lap in practice, and that is what you expect an alien to be able to do. And James Parker getting it done, putting his 888 on pole, fantastic stuff. And now comes the other question. Well, he beat him in qualifying, but that isn't enough of a gap to beat Philippe Samard in the race. He can get a draft and tow around the track at that distance.
He can, and I've also just realised that qualifying isn't quite over yet, because Harry Conway's McLaren is still going around the circuit. Harry Conway down in 28th place, not where I would have expected to see him, considering he was one of the highest runners in the pre-qualifying event at Silverstone, and he's going to come up towards the line. Obviously, not really on that much of a quick lap, nothing worth gaining there, so he's just going to slide it across the line, and Harry Conway will be starting down in 28th position. Interestingly enough, Jesse, we have 3 drivers that didn't actually set a valid lap in this qualifying session, and that is Adam Tompkins, Joe McCauley, and Valentin Barrier will all start at the back of the grid. And those are not, well, Joe McCauley and Valentin Barrier are 2 interesting names to have starting at the back of the grid.
I hate to play devil's advocate. That's a complete lie. I love playing devil's advocate. I think that was a tactical move.
30 seconds.
I don't think that Harry Conway, Macaulay, or Barry want to be anywhere near this field as they go green in the wet at Spa to start off this championship. These are all championship contenders in my book, and I think that they want a clean slate to start the race. Keep in mind, this is sim racing. This is a sim race. There is damage, a mistake, a crash that can completely ruin your day. There are points at stake today. This championship, again, goes for, I guess, about 2 months or so. So you don't want to start it off on the bad foot. And I think that was a tactile decision for these cars to go to the back on purpose, not qualify, and have a clean start. I wouldn't be surprised if they just sort of half throttled into turn 1 here.
You may have noticed as well, we only had 40 seconds on the pre-race wait time before the session. That is actually a mistake. That should not have been the case here today. It should have been the regular 5 minutes. So I don't think anyone has been caught out by that, fortunately. I think enough people were in the pit lane preparing for the race session before Harry Conway got to the line, and no one seems to be forced to start from the pit lane. So that's really good, and we do apologize for that, and I'm going to have to apologize to the drivers post-race as well, all 7 splits of them, because that's definitely not something that should have happened, and hopefully not too many people across all 7 splits get caught out tonight. But whilst we're on the formation lap, Jesse, we did mention that we would get into the calendar for this season today, and of course it's only right that we do address the calendar before we get the season officially underway. So we have Spa tonight for a 75-minute race. We'll be heading to Kyalami next week for 2 30-minute sprint races. That's going to be exciting. Then we have a week off because the 24 Hours of Kyalami for the World Tour is on. But then we'll come back on February 26th for a 75-minute race at Bathurst, which is going to be really, really fun. You'll have heard that the British GT DLC is coming out on the 10th of February. Well, on the 5th of March, we're going to Snetterton for 2 30-minute races. Then we'll head to Silverstone for a 2-hour race. Misano will be followed with 2 30-minute sprint races. Donington Park is the penultimate round of the season with 2 30-minute sprint races. And then Suzuka caps off the season on April the 2nd with a 75-minute race. So we've got 75-minute races, 2 30-minute races, and a 2-hour race coming up at different points throughout the championship, Jesse. I mean, it's a new format. It's an interesting format. And we're hoping that it really does come off well, because we've been experimenting with different race lengths for a while now in some of the one-off events. And I think it's really cool that we can, finally bring them towards our mainstream championships.
Yeah, I mean, this Friday championship, the first one of 2021, meant to sort of mimic the SRO championships a little bit. You've got some endurance races in there, some sprint races. I think it's going to be fantastic fun. And these drivers who maybe aren't necessarily used to the actual sort of SRO format, this is going to be a learning curve for them as well. Get as many points as you can. If you have to finish in a position somewhere outside the top 10, make sure you get everything you can, but don't throw away your chances of winning it all. And it's going to be that kind of championship. I don't know quite what to expect from these split one esports pro kind of fastest of the fast guys, but it's going to be exciting. And Donington, of course, circled my calendar last year for that event. Can't wait. The penultimate round can't get here quick enough. I don't know why. Well, actually, I do know why we didn't schedule that sooner. We wanted to make sure that, regardless, we had that in there. And so excited for a couple of days from now. whenever we get that British GT pack. Well, they are all forming up 2 by 2 as they get ready to take the green flag for the first time in the Friday Championship in 2021. We're glad that you are with us here at RCI. All the cars getting sorted out into their grid position. Like Ryan said, nobody caught out. Everybody on the track, 33 cars, as they will take the turn 1 hard right-hand turn, Ryan. And as they get ready to turn their first lap in anger, and it's so important that you don't get caught out here. It's so important that you have at least a decent start and keep your nose clean.
It is important, Jesse, and as they come through La Source, they will now line up 2 by 2 for the start of the race. It's raining here at Spa for the first round of the championship. We've got James Parker and Philippe Samard on the front row of the grid. 75 minutes here to come. 1 mandatory pit stop with a tyre swap required, and we're green for the GT3 World Championship season here at Split 1. It looks to get away nice and clean as they go down towards Eau Rouge and now up over Radion. I think everyone has got away rather clean, but are they going to get through the puddle section at the top of Kemmel fairly well? It looks like everyone has got away nice and clean. No pile-ups over the top of Radion, but the important thing for James Parker is that he is in the lead as he comes down towards Les Combes.
No real pile-ups to speak of. A little bit of argy-bargy near the back as everybody fought for position, but nothing even remotely close to an accident as they still haven't sorted themselves out now. Going through Sector 1, they're still trying to get single file. You don't want to be off into the greasy, wetter line around here. You want to be in that ran-in sort of drier line. No dry line to speak of yet. But as you can see, in 30 minutes, the rain will lessen in intensity, and this race is going to be completely different as looking like a Porsche here getting a bit sideways, side by side. Think about going 3 wide behind them, doesn't do it, and they have to all filter out going through Pouillon. But fantastic start, it must be said, by all of these guys. A few minor touches, but besides that, incredibly clean considering the weather.
It is incredibly clean considering the weather. Only a couple of people probably caught out in 1 or 2 small incidents. We do have live stewarding here today, and I think that's Jaroslav Honzik I've just seen on my end has gone off and tapped the wall. I think he has, yes, it is the number 39, so Jardier off, just touching the wall slightly, and he's created a bit of a traffic jam right behind him here. We're going to get a replay courtesy of Nick Setnik.
Oh!
I think he just caught... Maybe did he catch the grass on the
he
on
either
the side of the track?
he either caught the grass or he caught a puddle when he was trying to go full throttle here, and one of the two, and that thing just hooked into the wall. It almost looked natural, but there's no reason he would steer left there. So yeah, either he caught grass or he caught a puddle.
So Jardier, unfortunately, not getting the greatest start to his race so far, but of course a long way to go yet in this race. Meanwhile, we can see the Lexus of Piffet under pressure from the likes of Karsten at the moment. The Bentley trying to put pressure on the Lexus as they go through La Source down towards Eau Rouge now. You can see Samard and Steelweissen up ahead, but now as they come over, and 2 Aston Martins, I think that was. Or was that the Ferrari of Boothby and Clements' Aston Martin just cutting Radion completely there? They'll have picked up a warning for that for sure. As we go down towards the end of Les Combes now, looking back from Karsten's Bentley, and Clement's going to think better of it down towards the end of the straight. And everything looking very, very clean so far. We do have one car all the way off towards the back. I think that's the number 18. Down towards the back. That's actually Joe McCauley. So Joe McCauley, who did start at the back of the grid, not having the greatest time out here in the first race. He's got a lot of work to do at the moment, Jesse.
Yeah, I mentioned at the very start there was some argy-bargy in the back of the field. I think Joe McCauley was sort of involved with that. I'm not sure to what extent he was involved with that, but I think he was a passenger for some of the first corners, if you catch my drift. So maybe that's a bit of it. Also, again, could still just be tactics. Everybody here has to be on the track 75 minutes. You have that mandatory pit stop, and at this point, it may just be about survival. If you are in the middle or the back of this pack, maybe Macaulay hedging his bets that there's going to be some calamity in front of him. But either way, everybody, for the most part, away, barring a few minor incidents. That very strange incident with Jaroslav Hanzik there. Not quite sure still what happened. Maybe he'll be able to tell us post-race, hopefully. And again, we'll be paying attention to his pit stop as well to see just how much damage, or if he even has damage, or even chooses to repair damage if he has it. But still very wet conditions, full wet conditions here. You won't find any of these cars on anything other than a wet tire. But all of these cars still going around and going well, I might add. Pretty good lead, James Parker, 2.2 seconds in front of Vasson here. Vasson has got around Samard, and everything has shaken out the front. This is Boothby, who is being fought by Clements here, and Wilmot behind them as well in this line. One thing, Ryan, we haven't talked about that we must talk about, because it is wet at Spa: track limit warnings. You get too many of those, ACC is going to give you a penalty.
We've got a McLaren off at Radion. We've got a McLaren, I think it's Christian Latta, the 102. His McLaren is facing backwards just after Radion. And
smart move there, though.
It is a smart move. Lost it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
look at this!
The NSX.
Oh, my goodness.
And that was Jardier again having to go wide. My word.
Oh. Well, this is smart by this McLaren here, and I'm not sure.
Yep.
I haven't seen the number, but this is smart. You may be wondering why he was just sitting there. That's Christian Latta. Christian Latta, he just sat there. I mean, he didn't really have much of a choice, but that is the gentleman and the smart thing to do, to not move. It's a very dangerous place. Nobody can see the top of Radion. I applaud his ability to keep it off the wall, number one, but also having the smarts to not try and rejoin in that instance.
It was definitely a sensible move there by Christian Latta to keep the car stationary, so that if people did spot him, they knew which way to go. They knew he wasn't going to move in any unpredictable way. And, well, Jaroslav Hanzik, that's the second time he's had to go off track in the first couple of opening laps here in the race. He's not going to be thinking that his race is going too well so far, but he remains in 13th place at the moment. This is Verstappen, and that's Christopher Verstappen in the number 2. He's in 16th place at the moment in the Aston Martin. A few people, of course, did have to take avoiding action with that McLaren, so a few of these guys have spaced themselves out at the moment. But it's James Parker all the way at the front leading, and Samard, of course, having dropped down to 3rd now, so Vason is up into 2nd, but it is still Aston Martin 1, 2, 3. And James Parker doing well at the moment, 2-second gap, and finds himself in a bit of a comfortable position, but still has 67 minutes to go.
Ryan, still Vasson is actually catching James Parker. He consistently caught him on that last lap. So now it's down to under 2 seconds, the gap first to second. That's interesting. I didn't expect that to happen, but here we go. It could be game on here early in this race. And something else that happened while we were covering Latta's spin in Radion is I thought Clements had got around Boothby. He certainly looked like he was going to make that pass, and then suddenly Clements was behind Fifitt there for 7th place, and Willimont was all the way back to 8th. I don't know exactly what happened there, but certainly some good hard racing. They're all still together.
We've got a bit of a cluster here, Jesse.
Yeah, this is they're going to keep banging doors here, and that's not going to go well. Eventually, somebody's going to get either angry or sent off the track, or a combination of both. They are going to sort it out here, lads. Keep your heads. You've got more than an hour to go, and at least 6 or 7 more races in this series, or weekends, I should say, that you have to share the track with these guys. Don't ruffle feathers this early, but they are absolutely going at it despite the conditions.
Yeah, Tavrayan there in the number 59. You can see on the timing board he's 14th place. He's going to be around 18th place by the time that timing board updates. The number 59 just dropping further and further down the
what a move!
pack.
Oh, look at him!
My word, I think that was João Cavaca in the 33, wasn't it? The Portuguese
It
driver.
was. Brian, I saw him dive into the corner. I'm like, there's no way he's going to make that move stick. And the second he tried to gas it up, it was João Cavaca. Look at this. He stuffs this down into the corner, and I'm like, there's no way he's going to make that stick. And he just gets a little loose, letting off the brakes, trying to let it roll. And that's exactly what I expected to happen. But what a move. Didn't come off there, but at least now he knows his limits a little bit better in that car. Because again, in this race, with these tires, with this competition, none of these drivers likely have any information outside of practice and maybe a practice race that they did. So we're learning, and they're learning as well, as that Ferrari continues to battle side by side in the background there. I think that's Valentin Berrier, who started very near, if not dead last, 33rd on the grid. He's making his way up to 24th. He's on a charge, and he's trying to make this pass on Harry Conway. Conway probably doesn't want to get past.
No, he doesn't. And obviously, Valentin Barrier and Harry Conway, very familiar with each other on the circuit as well. Of course, Valentin Barrier, Jardier community team. He'll also be racing in the World Tour. He was made his appearance in the first round at Silverstone, I do believe, and making up Jardier's team. Here's Cody Pride there for PPR Esports, and he's making his way down towards Les Combes at the end of the Kemmel Straight. We've got a yellow flag just after Radion again, and that does seem to have cleared itself now. I think that was Adam Tompkins in the Bentley number 170, because that car has just returned to pit lane. So I think the number 170 Bentley may have found the wall at the top of Radion, and that might have to be a retirement for Adam Tompkins, which if that is the case, that is a massive shame so early on into the season. But we stay here with Cody Pride. We're actually on the front splitter of the McLaren at the moment, and of course he's chasing down Tavrayan at the moment in the number 59, who has dropped to 18th place. I was right after my initial calculations, and that Ferrari does seem to be struggling a bit as the McLaren is right on the back end for a lot of these corners.
Yeah, Tavrayan, something is either up with that car, or he's just not got a comfortable setup in it one way or another. He definitely appears to us, and I'm assuming appears to the other drivers, like maybe the handling not quite right on that car. But one way or another, whoa, big off there, Cody Pride. And I think that might have been enough that would have given you a track limits warning. But either way, like we were saying earlier before things hotted up, you get 3 track limit warnings, you're going to get a penalty, and that could spell doom for you, as Simon Keeble trying to make this pass. He's going to be on the outside here. Can he get it done on Willamont? He's going to go way off the circuit here. He's going to have to fall back in line. Can't get it done. It looked like he was going to have it, but whenever the corner goes the opposite direction in a chicane, well,
we've got an NSX off at the bus stop. We've got an NSX off at the bus stop. I'm not too sure who it is. Was it Froschel? I think Herbert Froschel might have been off at the bus stop chicane for a moment there, the number 86. I'm not sure if we'll be able to get a replay of that. And no, it wasn't. It wasn't Froschel, but and there was also the 59 Ferrari.
What?
That was Ismail Lebrec. That's Ismail Lebrec stationary there in the middle of the chicane. So we didn't catch that. But so that's not a good start for Ismail Lebrec. And obviously Christopher Tavrayan's day just keeps getting worse and worse. Was 14th, got overtaken by 4 cars in the space of 6 corners, and found his way down to 18th. And now he's all the way down in 28th. So the 59's day just keeps getting worse and worse, and Ismail Lebrec's not having a great time of it either.
Look at the damage.
Yeah, his NSX is that's run into the back of something.
I assume it hit into Tavrayan, because they were not next to each other on the racetrack. So the likelihood of them coming together trying to make a move into the chicane, unlikely. Again, one of them must have spun and the other one caught up and didn't have anywhere to go. But one way or another, that's going to spell disaster for both of those drivers, especially Ishmael Lebrec, who's somebody we typically think could win this championship. It's not the start that he would have wanted, and he'll have a long road to get back to, well, a respectable position, especially with all that damage. I would imagine it's going to be a long hour to end this race now for that team.
It definitely is, and Keeble, he is looking interested on Wilmot's Bentley at the moment, and the number 316 having to go off track here, trying to defend from the number 47. They're going to come down to the bus stop. He's going to try and push that Aston Martin as wide as possible to the edge of the circuit, and now coming out of the bus stop chicane down towards the source. What is going to be the decision for the number 47 Aston Martin, as we get news from the stewards that car 49 has actually been given a 5-second penalty, and that's for causing contact with car 86. Now, car 86 is actually Froschel.
Interesting.
So Herbert Froschel was involved in that accident. I wasn't incorrect when I first called out Froschel, so he was involved with the 59, and then I'm guessing Ismail Lebrec got caught up in that somehow.
I would say that's a fair assessment. That seems to all fit in place. Cody Pride still making his way up through the field, trying to get this pass done on Grant Smith, and he looks like he's going to be able to do it done and dusted. Can Grant Smith have anything to say about it? No, he cannot. Falls back in line with that Porsche, and position gained. Cody Pride for PPR Esports in the number 1. He's going to continue his march to the front. He's looking racy here. And oh, by the way, he has Shermatinsky and Bouquet in front of him. So a lot of proposition in front to gain even more positions as we look at the rear wing camera of Shermatinsky at the line of cars behind him. Oh, the Porsche getting all sorts of sideways. Has to catch it twice, Ryan Gill.
Yeah, it's not looking too good at the moment for Bouquet, and Cody Pride in the McLaren looking to get past at the moment.
It's dangerous.
But Grant Smith sitting there as well in the 120. He's going to be looking interested, and of course this is the problem we have with so many cars so close together. Oh! A nudge from Georgius in the Ferrari, the 777.
Oh.
Just gives the Porsche a little bit of a tap, say, you know what, I'm here. And I think Verstappen almost did the same thing to Georgius right there, almost giving him a little bit of a tap just to let him know he's there. And the Ferrari goes a bit wide on the exit of Stavelot. And is this going to give the Aston Martin the traction it needs in the wet? Is it going to give it the run that it needs coming up towards Blanchimont? He's not going to do here for sure.
Oh, he hit the curb. Big wobble.
Just touches the
curb. What in the world?
He comes back over the grass. He's lost a place to João Cavaca, but most importantly, he has kept the car going, and he has kept the car out of the wall. Incredible commitment there, but it was brave to try and make a move through Blanchimont in the wet.
Verstappen going all the way from the curb to the dirt to try and save time. And oh my goodness, I think what you're seeing here is a lot of these cars now with some wear on the tires and some heat in the tires, or perhaps lack of heat in these tires. They're getting all sorts of sideways coming off some of these corners now, and also too because they are probably pushing it really hard. Karsten has made his way all the way up to third place. Still, Vasson has made his way 1.3 seconds, as we're going to nearly be 3 wide here as Bouquet is trying to fend off all comers here and just about gets it done. Shermatinsky still leading this pack, and Cody Pride still trying to get those positions back. And meanwhile, Jordan Grant Smith trying to get away from the pack behind him. Jose Jorge is behind him with Cavaca and Verstappen behind them as well. You see that Aston Martin has some very clear damage on the nose. That's Verstappen's car. And I don't know if that was in a recent incident or something we didn't see, but certainly a little bit of damage on the white Aston Martin.
Yeah, definitely so. And now we're looking at Jaroslav Honzek, who has managed to work his way back up to 10th place where he started the race. Of course, remember, it was around here that he went off and just grazed the wall and was down into 14th place. Then he had to avoid Christian Lotta's McLaren at the top of Radion, and he's finally made his way back up towards 10th place, and now he's looking very, very interested on the back of Soldatov in the 64 Aston Martin. Of course, Jardier in the Mercedes for this season, and alongside Shermatinsky, I think there's only 2 Mercedes in this split, Jesse. If I'm not incorrect, the Mercedes Evo, not too popular of a car for this championship, but Soldatov is going to have a little bit of a twitch going through the bus stop, and look at the drive from Jardier. He's going to be ahead as they cross the line, but it's going to be Soldatov on the inside line. Is he going to outbrake Jardier coming into La Source? Yes, he will. Is Jardier going to have a look at the cutback?
Oh!
The Aston Martin sluggish on the exit. Jardier has to take slight avoiding action. Now they're on the run down towards Eau Rouge. Jardier surely not going to have a look on the inside. No, thinks better of it. He's going to have a look. And as they come out of Radion, he'll eye up the straight. This is where the Mercedes should have the advantage, should have more straight line speed than the Aston Martin, but it seems like Soldatov had a better run out of Radion. He's going to be ahead as they come towards Les Combes, and Soldatov survives, but Jardier is putting on the pressure.
Soldatov going ultra defensive for the last half of a lap. It almost threw Jardier off. He didn't expect Soldatov to take him so far to the inside of turn 1. He does. That makes Jardier have to correct, and it ruins it. But look at this. To the outside goes Soldatov, and to the inside goes Jardier. The inside will become the outside. He's living La Vida Loca, and I think he might just get this move done. No, they're still going to be side by side. Soldatov has the advantage going into Pouhon, and he's going to let him go as Jardier as they still continue this fight. Wide is Soldatov. To the inside, Jardier. Door to door. Pass done. Position gain. 9th place for Jardier. That position took him nearly a lap and a couple of close calls, but back inside the top 10, back to 9th. He is doing really well considering he was nearly involved in an incident and hit a barrier early in this race.
Jardier doing just what Jardier does, which is making incredible overtakes, and I'm sure he enjoyed that as well, as much as it probably took a bit longer to get the move done than he was probably hoping for. He'll have definitely enjoyed that one. And now Willemot on the back of Soldatov as well. Of course, Soldatov did get past Willemot initially, but of course now the Bentley eyeing up that Aston Martin. The Aston goes wide at Blanchimont, and that will just allow Willemot to close in just a bit more for turn 1 pro racing. And of course, a lot of these guys you will be seeing in the World Tour, which we did have the first round of just a couple of weeks ago. And then we've got the second round of the 24-hour of Kyalami in 2 weeks' time. And make sure you don't miss that one. But staying back here, we've got George Boothby and Philippe Samard. And that's George Boothby getting past Philippe Samard. So Philippe Samard, who qualified on the front row of the grid, has only gone backwards in this race. And the man that did the double in the first round of the Ferrari Evo Cup on Monday, well, he's now powering that car for Sidemax Motorworks into 3rd place and into 4th place, and on to close down on Karsten, currently sitting in 3rd place. And meanwhile, James Parker, he's got a bit of company up at the front as Vason has finally close the gap down to within half a second. Jesse, we have a battle for the lead with 52 minutes to go.
Yeah, and I think this might be pretty simple for Milton Stilvassen because I've been looking at James Parker's times. And by the way, feel free to click the live timing link in chat as well and follow along at home. Keep up to date on all the battles, but I don't think this is going to last very long. I don't know if James Parker has cooked his tires or what, but he has just been off the pace. He's doing 27s as James Parker, which isn't that bad considering most of the top 10 is, but the problem is Stilvassen is doing 26s. He's one of the quickest, if not the quickest car on the racetrack, and in the last couple of laps, he's been chewing up James Parker to the tune of half a second a lap. So, well, I say it'll be easy, but you know that old adage, catching somebody's one thing, passing them is quite another. And, well, passing James Parker, I'm pretty sure I've never seen it done before. So we might be seeing a world first here, folks.
Definitely is a rarity, but James Parker at the front of the field at the moment. Aston 1-2, and the way it's looking at the moment, looks like it will probably be an Aston Martin that wins this race, but a long way to go. Mistakes can still happen, accidents can still happen, and James Parker, he's finding himself with some company. I think that's Clements just in front of him, so finding his first traffic of the race. And a couple of people have already come in to serve that mandatory pit stop, Jesse, with the required tyre change. João Cavaca, Vanak, Azevedo, Joe McCauley, Clements, and Ismail Lebrec. All of them coming in to serve that mandatory pit stop. And it's a bit risky, isn't it, to serve your mandatory pit stop with tyre change right at the beginning of the race, because if it starts to dry up later on, you're going to have to do an extra pit stop to everyone else.
That's true. I feel like it's a calculated risk, and the vast majority, as we watch Simon Keeble here looking at the back of Piffet now, he's trying to get the position down at the turn, can't quite do it, has to fall back in line. They get by the lap car, though. But I think most of the people that come in, like Ismail Lebrec, they've all had early issues in this race. Maybe they want to come in, do some maintenance, change a few things, and you kind of know what you got at this point. With 50 minutes to go, 30 minutes from now, it's still going to be raining with the same intensity. So if the track does dry up, it's going to be due to car activity, not the rain actually stopping. And you kind of also know what this weather is currently doing, and it's not drying up the track at all. It's a very raceable, drier line that is still completely wet. So it's sort of risky, because now you're going to have 50 minutes of wears on your wets, and if it does sort of dry up in the final 10 or 15 minutes, you're going to be completely defenseless.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see how all of this plays out. Of course, the weather at the moment for the next 30 minutes is not expected to change at all. You can see it up there in the top right corner, expected to continue raining as is. But of course, we know ACC, the weather can change at any time. And, well, speaking of things changing at any time, the number 58 of Houle seems to have picked himself up a 5-second penalty, courtesy of our live steward. And speaking of the McLaren, going backwards as well after Pouon. I kind of get the feel that a curb was probably clipped there where it wasn't supposed to be. Definitely damage on the front of that McLaren. Okay. Coming out wide here, or is this contact with the Bentley? It is contact with the Bentley.
Did that look intentional to you?
I don't know. It's hard to tell. Was the McLaren unnecessarily slow?
Probably.
I don't know, but it's going to be investigated by the race stewards either way. They do look at everything that goes on around this circuit. They don't really miss anything, and they're going to be looking into stuff. So that incident will be looked into by the live stewards, no doubt. We haven't really had too much to report from them. It has been a very clean race in terms of contacts between drivers, Jesse, so far, which is always nice to see in conditions like this.
Yeah, it is. It's certainly not something we typically expect. I mean, we expect even the top drivers. Oh, is that Jose Jorge's? I think it is. Jose Jorge's heavy contact in Radeon, and he's going to lose a position here at maybe 2. He's going to continue to fight, but that car cannot be right after taking such a major impact. How he even held on to that is beyond me. But I think we sort of expect in races like this, we expect more scrappy racing and the margins to be a bit bigger than usual, and certainly we've seen that. But for the most part, all the incidents have been like Jose Jorge here, where it's been single car incidents that they just sort of mind their own. But oh my goodness, right into the back then, and that is not exactly what Verstappen wanted to see. It gets right into the back of him. He's actually going to get back on the charge as Jose Jorge here.
Plenty of body to body racing going on here at the moment at Spa.
Oh my
and
goodness!
Georgius dives way too deep at Puon, misses the corner. And
They're not done here. They're
That's
getting
going to allow
angry.
Verstappen to come back. But I agree, Jesse, this isn't over yet. And did that kind of look like Verstappen gave the place back? Aston Martin looked very slow there, coming out of
Oh, here we
Puon.
go
But then
again.
the 777's gone wide. And now they're going to be trading places again, perhaps. Or are they
Oh!
bit of contact as well? For good measure, as Verstappen switches over to the inside line again, and the Aston Martin is going to get back in front of the Ferrari.
Folks, I want to make it very clear, we did not fit any of these teams or drivers with a punt to pass button, but certainly some of their steering wheels have that very feature.
That is definitely banned around here. Meanwhile, Jaroslav Honzik, he's been making his way up the grid, as we mentioned earlier on, and now he's got Bell.
Oh, he's thinking about it.
In front of him as well. He's got another Ferrari to dispatch, and the Mercedes on the power down towards Eau Rouge. They are going to go side by side. This time, a Jardia will get it done. Coming into the corner through Radion, nice and clean. And I'll say it again, Jesse. Jardia just doing Jardia things.
Yeah, it's absolutely right. I mean, I've seen him win in damaged cars. We did a race last year at Laguna Seca. He had a fairly massive incident. He still came back and he drove to the field and he won the race. So I can't explain him, but that is the perfect way to put it. Jardier doing Jardier things. Smacked a wall on the opening lap. Had to avoid contact with a couple of cars, slowed him down. Fell back through the field a little bit. Jardier, no big deal. Got a little damage. Who cares? I'm picking up spots inside the top 10 against pros. Jardier doing Jardier things. That's the best possible way to put it. And oh, by the way, if you thought this fight was over between Jose Jorge and Verstappen, no, it is not. They are still nose to tail. And I wonder how much argy-bargy the stewards are willing to allow to happen as long as it doesn't take anyone out. I wonder if maybe they've already ran afoul of that and they're just trying to determine what penalty length they should give, or maybe they're going to allow them to race on. It's a little bit more body contact than I'm used to seeing, but certainly they were giving it and receiving it.
I think at this stage, yeah, I think that's a fair way to put it, considering it was going both ways. I think at this point it would probably just be a warning for both of them. I think if it went anything beyond what we've already seen, then I think the stewards would probably want to look into a penalty for one or both of these drivers. But you know what, a little banging doors is okay in moderation, and make sure you don't damage each other's cars too much. And Valentin Barrier, he's made his way past Cody Pride, although the timing board hasn't quite updated yet. But Cody Pride doesn't seem to be too happy about being behind the Ferrari of the Frenchman, and he's going to have a look, see if he can get past the number 72. Valentin Barrier going a bit deep into the bus stop chicane, and Cody Pride's going to pull off into the pit lane. He's going to go and get that mandatory pit stop
I don't
done.
hate that move.
No, I mean, if George Smith was here, he'd approve of that move a lot. I mean, George Smith, he loves the get out of traffic move, is what I've started calling it.
I love forcing people to be on your strategy, and I love it whenever I'm in the driver's seat. Meanwhile, James Parker, very much still in the driver's seat, still Vassen behind him, has not made this pass. I almost feel that the 962 is just sort of pacing James Parker at this point and isn't really pressing the issue, because still Vassen was running 26s up until the point where he caught him, and obviously you can't drive through somebody, despite the fact that Jose Jorge tried earlier in the race with Verstappen, but you can't drive through somebody. But I also feel like if he wanted to pass, if he felt the urgency to pass, he probably could, but also he doesn't really feel that he has to, because look, he pulls right up to him and then he just sort of falls in line, does Vassen here. So not entirely sure that he's attempting to make the move just yet, but tactics and strategy everywhere. But going back to pits, I love the get out of traffic move, as you put it. I love having a strategy and executing that and making other people fall in line with what you have done, especially if you're in traffic, if you know you're a faster car, why not split the race in half, get in pit road, get it done, and get out? And I am a bit surprised that neither one of our front runners have pitted at the halfway point either.
Yeah, it is interesting to note. We are almost at the halfway point of this race for 75 minutes here tonight. We're approaching 35 minutes into the race. Significant portion of the field have gone into the pit lane and completed that stop, though. Only the top 16 at the moment still remain out on track, and James Parker, I think I think he probably did maybe work a bit too hard to try and create a gap at the start, and I think Steel Vason has, kind of closed that gap up a bit, maybe preserved his tyres a bit more, but we know there's a mandatory tyre change for the pit stop, so I don't really think tyre conservation is going to be too much of concern for these guys, as we can see Keeble putting Pither under pressure here at the moment, down towards the end of the Kemmel Straight. The Lexus, it's pretty good in the wet, but so is the Aston Martin, and wow, Keeble later on the brakes. There's going to be contact. And is he going to take that place, or is he going to give it back to the Lexus? Does he believe he's earned that place on merit? He probably does, and he's going to take the place. And I have to say, Jesse, that one is probably going to have to go to the stewards for verdict.
Well, I think Keeble's going to argue that, yeah, he hit me first. I was on the outside, and I had every right to be there, and Keeble did. And I feel like Peffett kind of doored him first and was going to send him off the track, and Keeble's like, not on your sunniest day there, sunshine. I'm going to give it back to you and take the spot. So be interesting to see how the stewards feel about that. I feel like that was hard racing, and maybe worth some sort of penalty. Harry Conway in pit road now, as we see some of the back half of the top sort of 15, if you will, coming into pit road, getting their stops done. Nobody inside the top 10 at this point has pitted. Everybody's still going. We're going to see if either of our two leaders here, James Parker and Vason, come in this time by. And yes, indeed, Steel Vason will come into pit road. A car went off in front of him. That Porsche there could have slowed him down just a bit.
I think it did.
Gets into pit road.
I think Bouquet did slow him down. And
it's not what you want.
No, it's not. Definitely not when you peel off into the pit lane expecting to, maybe threaten someone and force them into, sticking on your strategy. The last thing you need is to be held up on your end of the pit stop. Jaroslav Honzik, he's making his way into the pit lane as well, and he's also going to be followed in by Bel Hussein. So a lot of these guys now starting to come into the pit lane. Jesse, you kind of did say you were surprised as we reached closer to the halfway mark that more people hadn't gone into the pit lane. Well, I think a few of them are listening on the stream here tonight, because they've all of a sudden decided that, you know what, we're going to follow Jesse Lee's advice here tonight, and we'll find out if that was the right decision come the end of the race.
Ooh, Ryan, that is a dangerous thing to be playing with, listening to me, but Lord knows I've lost more races than I've ever won, so I really wouldn't, and mostly on strategy too, so not really my strong suit, but it just makes sense. Split the race in half, especially if the race has gone your way to this point. If you are James Parker, if you are Karsten Samard, if you are a Vason, just go ahead and split the race in half and get it over with. It makes sense that some of the people further down the field, they went in and pitted incredibly early, but I don't expect, and I don't think we are going to see anybody pit really late here. There's no real reason for it, especially now that the rain is not going to let up. The rain is going to continue pretty much to the checkered flag here today, so you're not really going to gain anything by staying out there. Get some new boots on the car, put the required fuel in. Is there required fuel, or is it just a pit? Is it just a tire swap?
It's just tire swaps for this race.
Excellent, that's right. So get that all taken care of and get back out there. as Lebrec a little squirrely off the corner here. Harry Conway trying to make the move, has to fall back in line. And of course, both these cars involved early in the melee. Back out there in the back half of the 20s, fighting for 21st spot. This splitter cam from Harry Conway looking at Ishmael Lebrec's Honda. Can't quite get there. You hear the spray hit the under tray of the car. Still very wet.
So Harry Conway looking to get past his fellow Triple R teammate and Ismail Lebrec, both of them running different cars. It's quite unusual to see Triple R not in their traditional colours. Harry Conway opting for a default livery this time round, but race leader James Parker is into the pit lane. He's going to crawl to a stop, get his mandatory tyre swap done. Here comes Karsten as well in the Bentley. Keeble and Piffert have all come in as well. So 35 minutes of the race left to go, Jesse. I think we're only going to have about 3 cars, maybe even 2 cars that, haven't done their mandatory pit stop. And in fact, as I say that, the only car not in the pit lane at the moment, or that hasn't been into the pit lane, is Philippe Samard. So we're only going to have 1 car left. Hasn't done its mandatory stop yet as James Parker pulls away from his pit box, and Harry Conway continues to chase down the NSX of Ismail Lebrec.
I don't know if my timing and scoring is bugged out, but it appears Jose Jorge is also still on the track and has not completed their mandatory. Oh wait, no, he is indeed.
He is in the pit road.
That was in fact my timing. I could have looked out the window and saw that. I chose to trust the timing, and that's what I get. Sort of commentator's curse. But what we're about to see is just how held up was Still Vasson here, I think. We suspect, you and I both reckon, that he was held up by Bouquet coming into pit road when Bouquet got kind of sideways on pit entry. Of course, pit entry is wetter than the racing line that they're used to, so it does happen, but...
but here it is, Jesse. It's going to be close, and he's going to be ahead. James Parker's come out behind.
So we can deduce either James Parker had a slow pit stop or Still Vasson was pacing James Parker for the first half of the race once he caught him. And after his pit stop, ran 2 dynamite laps to jump in front. Now, James Parker was incredibly quick off of the race start. Will we see any of that here? Will we see James Parker respond in any way? We'll have to find out. Certainly, tires are cold for this opening lap, but he was able to get a 2.5-second lead early in the race. I don't know if this is over yet.
I can actually tell you, Jesse, that James Parker's pit stop was 0.5 second slower than Steele Vasson's, but I don't think that's enough to make up the time that the 965 did make up on James Parker. I know 0.5 second in the pit lane is more than 0.5 second on the track, but it's definitely not the 2 seconds plus that Steele Vasson did make up on James Parker. So there's definitely been more at play there. I definitely think you are correct. He probably did have 2 amazing laps coming out of the pit lane, as we see Jaroslav Honzik now closing in on 7th place.
He just keeps going, doesn't he, Jardier? He just does not. I talked to Jimmy Broadbent for the endurance races that we had last year where they were teamed up here on RCI, and Jimmy just says that Jardier is just he's a different breed. He's super fast, and it's incredible to watch him drive. He's also a great teammate, and I can kind of see that. Jardier, he's a guy, he doesn't take himself too serious, but my Lord, is he fast. And it doesn't matter if his car is pristine or crash. His car looks pretty darn good, actually. For somebody who did make contact with the barrier, it does not look damaged at all to my eye right now. So
I think it was just a graze on the barrier. I don't think it was that bad And we know that side damage to these cars doesn't really have that much of an impact on performance. It's definitely
Let's
more
see.
focused on the front or rear end damage of the car, as
Oh, Keeble and
Piffet is
Piffet
all over the back
and
of
Jardier.
Piffet. And of course, Jardier's in here for good measure. He's going
Oh,
to be
here we
looking to
go.
make up any places he can. The Lexus seems to have a better drive than the Aston Martin. And closing. We've seen the Lexus do very well in these conditions here
Look at
before. He's
this.
going to have the inside line, but the Aston
Oh,
Martin outbreaks the Lexus. And he's going to have to keep Piffet, well, he's going to keep him behind him for another few corners, and that is going to, of course, allow Jardier to get in on this.
that is absolutely activated Jardier as he's thinking about making the pass. Can't quite do it. Falls back in line. All three of these drivers minding their P's and Q's here in the latter stages of today's race. Keeble leading Piffet, leading Jardier. This is for essentially sixth position. And Keeble's not that far behind Boothby, only about 3.3 seconds. Who's to say that if Piffet and Jardier get by Keeble here, that they can't go up there and chase a top 5 in the final 30 minutes of this race? All to play for, all possible, as Steele Vasson continues to put time on James Parker. Samard has not pitted yet out in front of the field. He has to pit and take on 4 new tires at some point between now and the end of the race. Cody Pride, speaking of teams and cars that are continuing to pick off positions, Pride trying to get by Shermatinsky now. Shermatinsky holding on to that 12th position. Can he get it done here? A little bit wide by Shermatinsky. Can't quite get under and falls back in line. But very steady, very methodical has been Cody Pride in that PPR Esports #1 McLaren. Nice looking McLaren, if I do say so myself. And Shermatinsky now having to go a bit defensive. Actually, he's going to go to the outside. Is he going to give up the position? That might have just been a forfeit of position, Ryan.
And it definitely is another position for Cody Pride. The McLaren moves himself up into 12th place. Shermatinsky relegated to 13th. Giacomaca just in the background there as well in the Ferrari. And 29 minutes of this race to go, Jesse. Philippe Samard has still not come into the pit lane. Interestingly enough, I would have expected him to have come in by now, unless he was hoping for the weather conditions to change, which is probably why a few of them did wait as long as they did until around the 35-minute mark, just to see if there was any chance of weather conditions changing. But now that that is firmly out the window, and Jaroslav Honzik has moved up to 7th place, by the way, off camera. He's got past the Lexus of Piffet, still hasn't updated on the timing sheets, but of course you can see it on the screen there for yourself. And he's going to now look to close down Keeble. He was saying in his Discord earlier that he was quite concerned about the fact that he'd have to drive the Mercedes in the wet around Spa, but he's not doing too bad for himself considering he was 14th at the end of lap 1.
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, he's flying around this track, making positions. He has the ability, in my opinion, if he gets a move on here, he could probably have a top 5 if he really shook a leg. By the way, if you are a Valentin Beria fan, well, his day has gone from bad to worse. Via a chat member has informed us that Valentin Beria has taken, I'm not laughing at him, I'm laughing at the way his race has gone. Well, unfortunately, he has taken dry tires on his pit stop, and he has had to come back down pit road to put wets back on. Nowhere near dry enough for a slick racing tire. So bad to worse for Valentin Beria today for the Jardier community team, and that's 72. It has not worked out, but more races in the future, more races. And that is what we do here at RCI. So just want to thank all of our partners, Race Department, AK Informatica, Speed Labs, and Sim Racing GP for all of their support. And thank you guys as well for being a part of the channel and watching with us. I'm Jesse Lee. I'm here with Mr. Ryan Gill and Nick Setnick behind the cameras. Glad to have you with us for the start of the first Friday Championship in 2021. Ryan, it may be damp and sort of chilly outside here at Spa, but the racing is hotting up.
It is hotting up, and it's nice and warm here in the commentary box. You and I have, we've got the heating on at the moment. It's pretty nice in here. We've got a really nice view down the back half of the pit lane, actually, and Philippe Samard is on your screen right now as we soak in the heat here at the commentary box, and he still hasn't come into the pit lane, and I am going to keep going on about it because it is quite unusual at this stage in the race to have not gone into the pit lane for that change of tires. Now, this wouldn't be an unusual thing to see in our previous format of races. When you have a 1 liter fuel requirement as the only thing you need to do, it's not uncommon to see people go up to the penultimate lap, or as in some people do, the last lap of the race, to come in and get that pits, that fuel requirement done. However, when it comes to tires and fuel, people like to split it up a bit. They like to maybe go half and half on fuel. If it gets very close to the back of the Mercedes of Jardier, it's quite unusual for someone to go this far into the race without going for that change of tires, unless Philippe Samard is hoping that he can put on some fresh set of wet tires with about 20 minutes left of the race and, absolutely torture them to the end of the race and hopefully make up a couple of places. Because if that's not his plan, I think I failed to see the strategy here, Jesse.
No, I think you've hit it on the head, Ryan. I think that's exactly what he's going to do, as Piffet still looking at Jardier here. Jardier making that sort of pass, and now sort of in the crosshairs of Piffet now. Jardier would very much like to get away from him and go chase Keeble back down, who has disappeared up the road. Certainly not letting him get away is the 195 Lexus. Trying everything he can to stay in contact with the 7th place driver at the moment. But Ryan, I think you're right with that strategy. I think Samard's race hasn't gone the way that he would have wanted it to. I think that he fell back. We documented that early in this race. He's doing the only strategy to him that makes sense. He's going to stay out as long as possible. Put the, I hope, a new set of wets on at the end. And he's going to be able to go as quickly and as hard as possible at a time where everybody else's wets are sort of wearing out a bit. We'll have to see if that does work out. Of course, if your day's not going quite the way that you want it to, why not be a contrarian and try something different? Speaking of being a contrarian, James Parker has erased. Oh, Joe McCauley in the barrier. Where is that? That's Pouon, and he's went hard off the track and Pouon and into the wall, spinning the car around a few times. He has parked and he has towed, I believe, back to pit road. That is unfortunate.
That's race over for Joe McCauley.
It is. I was just going to say, James Parker is catching Still Vasson now, and has been for the last several laps in a row. That gap was over 2.5 seconds and is now down under 1 second. James Parker's got the tires warm and he has the visor down. He is chasing Still Vasson. We know, of course, Philippe Samard is the leader of the race by virtue of not pitting yet. Still Vasson is what we'll call the leader.
Provisional leader.
Provisional leader, yes, indeed. As Keeble gets a 5-second penalty from the stewards. I'm sure Ryan will be able to tell us more about that. But keep an eye on all these battles again, hotting up here near the end.
Yeah, Keeble actually, number 47, has received a 5-second penalty. Wow, this... Jesse, to get an idea of how long this one's been assessed by the stewards, they haven't had too much to look at here today. It has been fairly clean between all of these guys, as we can see Georges and Shermatinsky going side by side up towards Blanchimon. The Ferrari's on the inside line. He's going to get it done on the Mercedes. Nice. Shermatinsky goes wide. He's going to have to tuck back in, and does so, and the Ferrari makes his way up to 13th place. So You know, they haven't had much to do in the steward's box, and they've taken their time on this one, to be fair. Number 47 collided with number 316. Now, 316, if I look at my sheet, that's Willamette. That's the Bentley in 10th place at the moment. This incident happened all the way back on lap 7. So they've been looking at that one for a long time.
I think, yes, I think what's happened here is that incident has been reported, and they had to go back and find that one, I'm pretty sure.
Well, either way, it has been dealt with, and we come into the last 21 minutes of this race, and Simard decides he's going to go around again. Not opting to pit yet. I hope he is aware that there is a mandatory pit stop in this race. We have had it a couple of times where people haven't been aware of a mandatory pit stop, but your MFD does like to make a reminder.
He spins it!
And it's a spin. And what I'm thinking now, Jesse Lee, is that tires.
That absolutely is tires. That's absolutely what that is. He's been out there for nears makes no difference an hour. Go ahead and call it 55 minutes out on those tires, and they are probably gone to the point where tried to put the power down out of the chicane, the hairpin, couldn't quite get it the power, and just looped it. It's a common thing you see even in the dry conditions, and I would be very surprised if he does not come in this time by.
Well, any time that he will have gained by staying out there for as long as he had, not that I think he has probably gained that much time, he has definitely lost it now. And for Simard, that might be all she wrote in terms of a podium position, but we'll have to see when he does eventually come into the pit lane. But looking further back, here is Keeble. He's got that 5-second penalty. He's going to have to carry it to the end of the race. Jardier is in front of him, and that's a Ferrari going very, very wide. That must be a back marker. Taking the Spa 24-hour 2020 practice line.
Don't. The only
you knew
saving
the joke
grace
had to come out at some point.
The only saving grace from Spa 2020 was the fact that they tightened that up and said, hey, we know you did it in practice. We know we let you do it in qualifying, but we're not going to allow you to do it in the race. And that was that I wasn't. Oh, that was. Can you imagine if that was actually allowed? But yeah, that was indeed a back marker who was merely attempting to get out of all of those lead lap cars away. Got to applaud that from that driver, letting the lead lap drivers race unrestricted there. Speaking of unrestricted, Jose Jorge trying to make all of these passes, make up all these positions. Cody Pride in front of him. Saw Pride making their way up in this race, but Jose Jorge trying to make the pass, going to go to the outside. Can he get it done in time? I think he will indeed. Position for the 777 over the 12th place, Jose Jorge. Oh, and by the way, James Parker continuing to close on the 9.62, 0.6 of a second the gap. And finally, in great relief, Philippe Simard, as if I had a crystal ball, Ryan, does come into pit after that spin.
Yeah, the right decision for him to take, but this is the battle for the lead. Obviously, they weren't leading because Philippe Simard was ahead on track, but he's definitely behind them.
Oh, really wide!
Steele Van Haasen, he's gone deep into the bus stop chicane, and that's going to allow James Parker to come back at him. It's roles reversed from the first half of the race. And James Parker doesn't like to take prisoners, but he is a clean driver. He doesn't like to get dirty. This should be a very clean battle. We've got 17 minutes to go, Jesse. Simard stationary in the pit lane. But 17 minutes. Do you think this battle is going to go to the end?
Probably, because now I'm starting to wonder if perhaps James Parker early in this race he had that massive lead. Well, I call it a massive lead. It was only 2.5 seconds, but for James Parker, that might as well be 15 minutes up the road. But what if, I love playing the what if game, right? What if he was saving fuel, working to a fuel number And that's where his times, because his times were not bad, James Parker's. It's just that Stilvassen's times were a bit quicker. One of the quickest cars on the track. Maybe Parker was working an engine mixture to get him to a fuel number, or perhaps maybe here in the last 15 minutes, we're going to see Parker's tires fall off this time by. I don't know. One thing's for sure, I'm definitely happier I'm in the booth than in one of those cars right now. A lot of nervous Aston Martins going around the track here, as this particular Aston Martin does come out. Philippe Simard, after the late pit stop and the spin earlier, will come out into 11th position. Count at 12th as Jose Jorge gets around him. So 12th position for Philippe Simard, and that did not work well at all.
Varsen's made a mistake. Varsen has made a mistake. James Parker
yes, he has.
in front of him. Will we be able to catch this on the replay? I hope. Yes, we will. Courtesy of Nick Setnick. And here we go. So, Sylvan Hassen.
So what happens here?
He's looking pretty good up until this point. Does he just go wide? Does he do what Jardier did? No, not quite.
No. Oh, he just slid it. Oh, yep. Loose in the corner, trying to get everything off the corner. Just digs a little extra hard with the track. I assume he has tuned his traction control fairly low, and the car just snapping sideways, and that gives the lead back to James Parker with 15 minutes to go. Game on. Can Stilvassen do anything to close that second gap and get back on the bumper of James Parker? Well, we'll find out in about 15 minutes' time, I would bet. Incredible stuff here in the opening round, though.
It's definitely been an opening round to remember, and of course we'll be at Kyalami for 2 30-minute sprint races next week. So that's going to be really, really exciting to see how these drivers cope going from one 75-minute race to 2 30-minute races. And of course Kyalami, a fantastic venue to hold 2 sprint races at. Here is Simon Keeble, of course still carrying that 5-second penalty. Probably going to demote him 1 position by the looks of it, assuming Piffet remains within that 5-second window, sitting at only 2 seconds behind right now. And just thinking to myself, Jesse, Philippe Simard, he lost a significant amount of time with that spin. But even without the spin, I don't think he would have been in the top 5. I think he probably still would have been outside of the top 5. Here is Jordan Grantsmith being chased down by Billy Octane. And Billy Octane, we haven't seen much of him here today. He didn't do too well in qualifying, and rocking that gorgeous 2Cs Motorsport livery, as that looks like João Cavaca coming back on the track. He was taking the Spa 2020 line in that scenario. wasn't avoiding anyone for traffic reasons on this occasion. And
big mistake! Big accident! Billy Octane hard at the top of Radeon into the lap car. Massive damage.
It wasn't a lap car. That's for position. I think.
That wasn't.
Just losing it.
On right, you are.
Of Eau Rouge, does he just get a little bit of a snap? Just aquaplanes, and there's not much Billy Octane can do there. He's Billy Octane just wrong place at the wrong time, and that's going to be raced over for João Cavaca.
Yeah, João Cavaca is out of this race, and the 33 Ferrari simply towing this car incredibly damaged, or as we would say in the States, killed. That car is killed. Oh, man, that is not how... Look, you get, folks, you fight for an hour to get positions back. Keep in mind, Billy Octane started way back in this field. He had fought his way inside the top 20, was looking good to potentially get, maybe up into top 15 if all things went well. Definitely could have been about 16th, 17th, and completely out of his hands. Nothing he could have done, and just heartbreaking here. The only solace is, again, well, in a week's time, you got 2 races to hope to make up for it a little bit, but that'll be little consolation to those teams here today. James Parker out in front of this field, leading Stilvassen. Stilvassen falling back now. He's lost about 0.6 of a second in the last lap and a half. I'm starting to think more and more that James just might have been working a fuel strategy early in the race that allowed Still to be able to catch him, right?
Yeah, James Parker looking dominant now because after that mistake, it just kind of seemed like it was roles reversed from the first half of the race, wasn't it? And
Indeed.
the 965 closing down on the 888. I don't think within the next 10 minutes that's going to change. I could be wrong, and I'd glad to be proven wrong. And I'd love to see two of them go head-to-head for the last 10 minutes, but I don't think it's going to happen. Meanwhile, just a bit further back, Jardier up into 4th at the moment. 12 seconds back from Karsten. He won't get on the podium unless one of the top 3 has an incident, but what a mighty effort from this man. Qualified 10th, very out of character for him, but he did say he wasn't looking forward to these conditions at Spa. Was down to 14th, had to take avoiding action on the 2nd or 3rd lap from Christian Larter's McLaren, but he's built himself all the way up to 4th place, and it's a fantastic effort, and it is just Jardier doing his thing and doing it very well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, you guys may recall about 10 or 15 minutes ago, I said, if Jardier keeps his nose clean here, he might be on for a top 5, maybe 5th. Well, some days I feel like Jardier exists simply to spite me and to prove me wrong. I had no idea. It was inconceivable to me that he could get higher than 5th place, but here he is, 4th. He will likely finish here, barring any sort of incident in front of him. Karsten up the road to the tune of 12 seconds. And, give a hand to Karsten, okay? He has been very quiet. He's probably the one up here in the top 5 we've talked about the least today. But that's simply because he has kept to himself. He has driven a darn good race, and he will likely be rewarded with a podium finish, and that is a lot of precious points. And oh, by the way, just in case it happens, if Jardier is a determining factor in this championship in a month or two's time, I want everyone to remember this race when he fought back to get every point he could. It could very well be important at the end of the season. But as it stands now, Coach Dave Academy's on James Parker in the 888 Aston Martin, getting it done here after a late lead change with 15 minutes to go. Now walking the lead out to the 962, 3 seconds the gap. It appears the 962 falling off a bit.
Yeah, it just kind of seems like that mistake. Bit of a nail in the coffin for Steele, Vason. Shermatinsky, meanwhile, it's under pressure from Cody Pride. Shermatinsky seems to be another driver that's just gone backwards here today, and that Mercedes, he's got damage on the front end of it.
I don't recall when he would have got that.
Might have happened off camera, but it is quite significant actually, with the bonnet flapping around.
That had to have happened recently, right?
I will check the incident. There is no incident reports with Shermatinsky, interestingly enough. And Cody Pride has just gone off onto the grass. So he's struggling to close him down. Cody Pride, by the way, has a lot of supporters here in the chat, Jesse. I'm not sure if you've noticed them. They've been cheering for him all race long. And I've also seen some hashtag ban Geordie in the chat. And I'm guessing that's Jordan Grant-Smith fans. He's in 16th place at the moment, and I can only assume that it's Jordan Grant-Smith fans, and unless there's someone else in this race called Geordie that I don't know about.
That's pretty good. We love everyone here. You're more than welcome. We hope that you enjoy your stay, and we hope that you'll like and subscribe here at RCI. Stay up to date with your favorite drivers and all of the GT racing goodness that we have to offer, and we love to see you guys in chat supporting your teams, drivers, and friends indeed. And actually, it's quite amusing because I feel like every week, every race, Ryan, it's a different person. Had a lot of Cody Pride fans and a lot of hashtags in the chat this week. It could very well be different next week, but love seeing it. Love having you all with us. We hope that you'll be back with us next week, of course, for the Kalami 2 30-minute races. It's going to be fantastic. 2 sprint race. If a 75-minute race at a wet spa is like this, what are 2 30-minute sprint races going to look like?
It's going to be interesting for sure, and of course, the whole reason we're heading over to Kyalami is because we're going to have the 24-hour there in just a couple of weeks' time. We're going to head over a good week in advance of that race, acclimatise to South Africa, get used to all the power cuts, as George Smith would say.
Oh, dear.
And look, I had to make the joke eventually if South Africa comes into the box. I do apologise to George Smith and everyone else from South Africa, but we do... Look, if George Smith is allowed to share the jokes in the Discord, then I'm allowed to share the jokes on the stream. And we've also got Nick Prainer saying, morning everyone from Australia, as Jesse Lee gets very animated.
Simon Keeble nearly wrecked him. He came off that corner drifto style and nearly lost it, but kept his cool, kept it in line, and Keeble has caught Jardier here, but I think with that 5-second penalty, it will be all for naught, sadly.
Yeah, Jardier doesn't really have to worry too much about this. He can afford to be overtaken by Keeble and still finish in 4th place, but obviously he would prefer to have a car between him and the Lexus behind that could challenge him for a position. Meanwhile, Soldatov chasing down Willamot for 9th place. This is on the back end of the top 10. We've also just seen another penalty come through. That's a penalty for the 107. Who is the 107? The 107 is Svenček, actually. And that's for collision with car 58. Now, car 58, if memory serves...
That's Hool.
That's Hool. Yeah, that's the incident we caught on camera. Bentley went into the back of the McLaren, and that was a 15-second time penalty for Svenček, so that was deemed to be entirely his fault from the stewards after they've looked at all the data, and it's good to know that that incident has been penalised accordingly.
Yeah, we theorized that there may have been a penalty coming there, and indeed it was delivered. So good on the stewards there. Of course, we didn't really mention it in full, but live stewarding for this entire series, stewards box next to ours. And they will be doing the adjudicating. We will be doing the speculating this season, I think, is what I'm going to go with.
The last thing you want to do is put the commentators in the stewards box. It never ends well.
I'm a big fan of rubbing is racing, as you might expect, as I'm from Yankee Doodle Land. But there is definitely a limit. I think we've seen a couple of drivers test that limit here today in the tricky conditions.
We've definitely seen people test it today, but I mean, looking at the penalty report, Jesse, I've got the paper here. I mean, you can have a look at it as you go here. Jake Boswell's been signing off a few.
It's not too bad, is it?
No, it's not. I mean, for a 75-minute race in the wet, this is probably the cleanest incident report sheet I've ever seen.
Yeah, indeed. It's not a whole. I mean, it's all been small ones for the vast majority. It's been small incidents as well, and that's good to see. We've seen a lot of hard racing, which is not something I would have ever expected today in these conditions. I would have been expecting a lot more tiptoeing. But then again, I also forget that this is the pro split with all the big boy drivers and girls, if there are any. So I don't know why I expected anything different, but certainly it has lived up to the hype, and I am even more hyped for this championship now.
Well, you can get hyped in a moment because we have a 3-way battle here at the moment. Willamot was slow into the chicane and Soldatov couldn't take advantage of that. So Simard is now going to go side by side. The two Aston Martins following the Bentley through La Source, and Soldatov will hold on at this point as we come into, well, I believe, is this going to be the last lap of the race, or is James Parker going to go around quick enough to give us one more lap? I think he is going to go around quick enough to give us one more lap, because he doesn't have enough of a gap to steal Vason to slow down, so we are going to get one more lap. So this is the penultimate lap of the race. James Parker will be starting the final lap of the race on his next time by, and well, Jesse, you can't say he hasn't deserved it, but I would say at the same time that Steele Vason will feel rather miffed that he's finding himself 6 seconds off the back of James Parker when he was so close at multiple points throughout this race. And Soldatov has got past Willamot, by the way. That happened just a moment ago. And now Simard is going to be looking to demote the Bentley outside of the top 10.
I think for James Parker, I think it has went to plan, basically. For him, he was able to get out front early. He was able to pace the race, and kind of feel like him losing the lead was almost sort of his plan. Like, he knew he had a little something extra at the end, as you would expect from Parker, and he was just able to manage the race, manage his tires, manage his fuel as well, and get himself in a position where he was in the driver's seat, literally and proverbially. And for Steele Vasa, I don't think he has anything to hang his head about today. He fought hard. He led a good bit of the race as Samard trying to get this pass done on Soldatov. Will he get it done around the outside? He's going to have to go way off the track, but he will gain the position. I'm not sure of the legality of that move, but either way, position gained for Samard, as he has at least gained positions back inside the top 10 into 9th now. But back to James Parker, it's just been a fantastic race for him. I don't think Steele Vason has anything to hang his head about. He raced one of the greatest of all time, and he will come home second today. Live to fight another day. Second place in points. Not anything to hang your head about. And Karsten as well. Karsten has done a great job. We haven't talked about him much. He's been quietly just sort of plugging along. 15 seconds off of second place, but also great points day. Nice quiet day. Exactly how you want to start off a championship, as we continue to watch Simon Keeble here. That's Jardier in front of him. He would very much like that position, and I think that lap car just exited stage right, said, I do not want any part of this, as this battle does continue on the white flag lap. Everybody on the final lap of the race now.
Yeah, James Parker working his way around. In fact, he's coming up towards Blanchimont at this point right now, and Willamot is not done with Soldatov yet. Simard has managed to get up into 9th place. But the Bentley is not quite done. But James Parker will come out of the bus stop chicane. He's been dominant today. He took pole position, and he was the favourite to win today. James Parker truly does take the win in style here at Spa, thoroughly deserved. And Coach Dave Academy will get a win to start the season. It will be Steele Vason in second place. Very well deserved second for him. Karsten will cross the line in third. Here comes Jaroslav Honzik and Keeble. Jardier should have this 4th place in the bag. Keeble not going to try any silly moves towards the end. He knows it's in vain with the 5-second penalty anyway. So Jardier will cross in 4th. Keeble, provisional 5th, will drop to 6th with the penalty, which moves Piffer up to 5th. Jardier is going to get in on the punting action towards the end of the race.
Oh, dear.
Belisane has actually had to come out through the exit road. But he will finish.
I think there was a car stopped in the chicane, and he had to take evasive action there, Ryan.
Yeah, there was. There was a car stop there. George Boothby will finish 8th, by the way. Simard will get 9th. And Soldatov would finish, and does finish, sorry, ahead of Willamette. So those are your top 10. And the rest of the order, as you can see on screen, a few drivers still coming around. I don't really think there's any more positions up for grabs. Conway, Frushall, and Grant Smith, all the closest drivers together on track, but all about a second apart from each other. Well, 75 minutes of racing done, Jesse. It was absolutely crazy at some points during this race, but it was entertaining throughout, nonetheless. And I don't think I'm overstepping a boundary by saying that Kyle Army in a week's time is probably just going to be as good or better.
Yeah, I don't think you're overselling it at all. It was a fantastic race. I expected to get a sort of a bumper cars, argy bargy, everybody struggling for grip affair. Well, what we got instead was 75 minutes of really close, really great racing, back and forth, lead changes, position changes, strategy. And oh, by the way, in case you are new to sim racing and think that any of that extracurricular bumping after the checkered flag was in anger, no, actually, that is a sign of a happy sim racer. In fact, whenever you crash into each other after the race is over. So, a lot of happy drivers inside the top 10, and why not? Excellent points days for a lot of these teams. James Parker winning, Steele Vasson second, Karsten rounds out the podium, Jardier, Piffett, Keeble, Boothby, Samard, Soldatov, and Willamont are your top 10. And behind them, of course, Jorge, Belisane, Verstreppen, Shermatinsky, Conway, Frechelle, Grant Smith, Pride, Octane, Clements, the top 20. And absolutely fantastic opening round. It has set the bar for this season. I don't think we're going to have too much rain in South Africa when we go, but stranger things have happened. But either way, it is going to be fantastic. Join us again next Friday for that race. Same time, same place, too. Go ahead and like and subscribe. Make sure you are in the know and get ready for that race. Ryan, it's great to be back in the booth with you. Fantastic race as always, and I'm just glad we got a whole season to go now.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting for sure. So do make sure to join us in a week's time. We will be taking to Kyle Army, and it's going to be interesting to see how those two 30-minute races work out. If you're interested in watching some more RCI stuff going on around our YouTube channel, well, tomorrow, the RCI Motorsport team are going to be taking on the 8 Hours of Monza, courtesy of the Real Racing Club Endurance Championship. We're going to have 5 cars entered in that race, Jesse. It's going to be absolutely crazy. And, well, we're going to be competing for silverware, potentially, towards the end of the championship. So you can tune into that tomorrow. Jesse Lee and Nick Setnick should be covering the race. We might occasionally get some driver interviews and a few of our other commentators involved as well. If you're looking for some Monday action, well, the Ferrari Evo Cup returns on Monday for round 2, which is also going to be at Monza, funny enough. So all Ferrari 488 Evos at Monza for the second round of that championship. Going to be fun. We've got Sam Wright and George Smith on the commentary team for that one. We should have some more championships starting in the coming weeks, but if you haven't seen it already, when British GT was announced just yesterday from Kunos, we released a little bit of a tease that we're going to be hosting our own British GT Championship for the next Monday series, and it's going to be a 50% replica of the 2020 British GT season. Signups are available for that on our website, signups.racingclubinternational.com, or you can join our Discord for a direct link to the event. So get yourself signed up for that. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. And a big, big thank you to everyone for joining here today. And obviously, a very big thank you to you, Jesse Lee, for joining me in the commentary box. I cannot wait to get the rest of this season underway. But from myself, Jesse Lee, Nick Setnick, all the stewards here at RCI who have done a fantastic job today, and everyone else in the staff, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.